What's up, guys? Welcome to KP Community episode 3. We call it the pilot, right?
We call it the pilot, because we're just as good as every other show on TV.
Really just because I screwed up and didn't record. Anyways, all right, cool. It's fine. So pilot, episode 1 to now episode 2. We're on episode 3 already. Let's go. Yeah. All right. So this is episode 3 of KP Community. All right. Well, tonight we're going over a couple different things. We got our first segment, average, Garrett's favorite segment, of course. And then we have our from the KOOP, and then we have our AMA. So ask me anything. So guys watching, prep your questions in advance. Be ready for that AMA at the end tonight. But let's start off with average. Garrett, talk to me about what post you found this week. Was that post average or not average?
So adding bands to every exercise isn't a progression of the exercise. Having a totally different exercise is the progression of the adaptation that we're trying to get out through the exercise.
So clarification, dead bug with a band is what we're talking about right here, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes. So dead bug with band, that's the exercise. So athletes moving through, they've added a band. Dead bug's already pretty decently challenging exercise as it is. So we're adding a band. Why?
For the look of difficulty or the ability to make it exercise a little bit harder. But if we look at the exercise itself as a dead bug, the intent behind the dead bug is the anti-rotational component of the core. So if we know that is the intent behind the exercise, then we know, okay, a pull-off press is the same thing through an anti-rotational core exercise. And then we also know B-stance RDL is an anti-rotational exercise. So if we know that, instead of adding a band to the dead bug, we can just go to a pull-off press. And then once we run through its progression of the pull-off press, we can just go to the B-stance RDL. And then that's where real training happens, where now we can load it with 100-pound dumbbells, 150-pound dumbbells, landmine press, tempo work, things through that, and understanding like the base intent behind the exercise is what we're trying to actually get out of the exercise, and not doing the exercise just to do the exercise. A progression is usually a new exercise that we can progress and then ultimately spend time in that range of motion or that intent behind the exercise.
Yeah. So it's more about not feeling like you're doing something more. It's more about progressing and actually doing more, which I think is why we've dubbed this post as average. Very, very average. Yes. So I see this a lot, and it's like, we talk about like FRC, for example. Like, I love FRC. I think it's great. You know me, I pushed you hard on FRC. Like, I want to do more FRC. I want to do like, the idea of what FRC stands for. Like, I love the usage of it in certain scenarios. And so, I think, I look at this too. I see like posts and I'm like, man, well, number one, they're not doing the FRC like exercise right. But their eyes look like they're about to pop out of their head because they're trying so hard. They're trying to feel like they're doing something, and they're moving slow, and they're controlling it. It's just like, okay, well, I get it. But we also need to actually do the exercise. Like, I love you bring up Clown College all the time. This and shout out to the Instagram,
Dr. Pat Davison.
Yes, there you go. So Clown College, awesome. We laugh about it because it's, he says, and one thing that you mentioned is, we talk about like, you have 2 really good exercises, and instead of doing 2 really good exercises, we try to combine 2 really good exercises to create 1 mediocre exercise. So
you don't get the adaptation out of the exercise that you were trying to get in the end. And that's all strength and conditioning is, train for that adaptation, not training to do an exercise.
So in this case, like, I'm with you 100%. Like, we're talking about very mediocre, very average post here. Because we see that consistently, like, this is the thing. Like, this is, we're trying to make things more complex than what they need to be because they sell on social media, not because they're necessarily this actual applicable thing, which leads me to my post, which is, I sent you the post this week on this group. They have this single post I saw, super flashy post, like lights everywhere, flickering stuff, and guys shirtless, jumping, tatted up, and guys chucking the ball. It looked like they're throwing pretty hard. Like, it's like, okay, well, what what's the context? So the post that I saw was that this guy is like, 2 fingers up, like trying to like create a position with like the wrist, and he's like in a position that we'd never be in when we throw. Like, yeah, I don't know like what we're doing, because we've never get to this position when we actually throw. Like we come here, we come through, but we're not in this position. I don't know. Anyways, so my point is that I'm laughing. Like, I don't know, like you and I sat down and looked at the post, and we're like, we both have no earthly idea what's going on here. And so pretty smart, I'd like to think, as a team, like comparatively to the population, like pretty smart as a team. And we also have, Reeves and Matt, awesome, super smart, intelligent dudes as well. And all of us looking at this post are like, no idea what's going on here. And so very rarely, like, and so this person doesn't have like a ton of followers. Like they're not like, they don't have this huge following. Like they don't have a bunch of MLB guys rolling through. Like we don't have teams hiring them. There's no like really college teams. Like, and I'm not saying you have to be validated by all that stuff, but I'm just saying, like, if your stuff is that unbelievably good and you're changing lives, and dudes are throwing like insanely hard and doing all this extra stuff, like it may look cool on social media, but like, I looked at this post, I'm like, this is super average, because it's just a lot of busy work and nothing really actually applicably happening to the actual thing that we're trying to do, which is throw baseball. So, I'm laughing because it's like this whole, stream of pieces of this video. But the one piece of it that jumped out was, why is this guy going through like what seemed to be like FRC on the mound with the forearm, and then like a throw, and then a jump, and then a landing, like a depth drop kind of thing.
Trying to be so specific. It's not even in the weight room specific of the sport of pitching. The pitching of the pitching is specific.
I have no idea. So anyway, super average. And so that's my 2 cents. Look, social media, both these posts, like social media, it's become the space where
it's a dangerous game.
Yeah, to validate yourself, you have to put yourself out there as a company and showcase stuff. But at the same time, it's like, well, if I'm just showing a squat, like the guy next door is doing a squat, so like my facility needs a banded rotation with a kettlebell, big toe offset, like whatever. And kids look at this stuff and they go, oh my God, like, wow, look, this guy's
doing
creating
this and that. And sometimes like the basics work because they work.
Yeah.
And like
what?
Lunging's been around for 50 plus years, with just dumbbells. Squatting's been around. Like there's, especially on my side of the weight room side, like there's only so many things that actually work, that being too innovative on for your post is like, there's only so much we can do.
Yep.
It's the nuance of pitching. It's the nuance of lifting that is like what makes the actual training right. It's not this new innovative, like jump here, hold this position, hold that position, throw a baseball off the wall, throw the baseball down the ground, and all these different things. It's understanding the training aspect, understanding the development that it may take time to actually develop. And I think that's where these posts are usually in. It's like guys want to see the progression. They want to see the dead bug with the band. They want to see all this stuff because they don't think a dead bug to a pull-off press to a B stance RDL is a progression. They think, oh, it's just a new exercise. They want to be, because they don't see the same intent behind the exercises. But that's what the coach is there for.
Yep.
And if the player asks questions, like, okay, the coach should be able to understand that. But majority of the time on these posts, the coach doesn't even know what's going on. So if the coach doesn't know what's going on, the player definitely doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down to too, like one of the things that is really, really important to understand. So, when we talk about coaching, right, we're a progressive organization. Like Connecticut Pro, I would like to think, I certainly hope we'd be labeled as a progressive group. Like, we have patent pending on like a product like that we've invented. Like we've got workload management that few people really understand the depth of. Like we've got like, VBT that you've written with programming that's automated. We're a progressive group. Like we're not hiding that by any means. But you and I preach simplicity. Like you and I, like all the data is important. All the advanced movement qualities are important, but we have to bring it back to simplicity, because at the end of the day, if I can't cue and teach the athlete what he needs to do, and I can't do it applicably. Like I can't do it in real time on the floor. I'm spending half of my day trying to teach the athlete how to do a certain movement. I actually miss the end goal, which is, I know it's something you've talked a ton about, but like I miss the end goal, which is like, I'm trying to get you to be a great pitcher. Like I shouldn't be teaching you like, you know, and even with drill work, like I shouldn't be teaching you how to look great doing a roll-in variation. Like I should be actually like trying to get you to a good roll-in variation, but use it to solve the problem that gets me to get to the mound to actually pitch, like not to just do the roll-in.
Yeah,
like,
it's not you're not doing the roll-in to become the greatest roll-in.
Yeah,
you're not doing the dead bug to do the greatest dead bug.
Yeah,
you're doing the dead bug to progress somewhere else to get to the end goal and then go to the mound from a lifting side. For you, you're not doing the roll-in to just do the roll-in. You're doing the roll-in to ultimately help lead to the mound. And I think that's where a lot of places get caught up in the drill work where it's like, we're going to have the greatest pick. Well, I can't even say it. A pivot pick. Yeah. And it's like, no, like get the intent behind the pivot pick.
Yep.
Do it with excellence, have high intent level behind it, not intensity, two different things, but intent behind the pivot pick. And then when you're on the mound, trust that the training that you've done through the pivot pick has transferred to the mound using data to support that, and then revamp that and do it all over again.
Strength coach sound like a pitching coach. I love it. Excellent. I mean, that's perfect though. That's exactly what it is. So it's close out average day, 2 very average posts. Next week, our challenge is going to be finding
good above average
posts. We're going to do some of that next week instead of just constantly looking at below average, because that's not getting us anywhere. So above average posts we'll look at next week, start to dive into some above average posts and highlight that in our community. So moving on, next we're going to go to From the Coop. So this week from the Coop, a couple of things we dropped. So we're posting up on the Coop. We have tutorials this week. So I know it's kind of like FAQs, like everybody's like, oh, this is like customer service. Like, yeah, but one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of our remote guys, especially, you know, getting that video right for ProPlay AI is difficult sometimes. So, you know, from that side of it, really excited about having a great tutorial for ProPlay online, how to get that quality video to make sure that we can get you your biomechanics reports and your weekly report. You know, Garrett, I know you're working right now on getting MyFitnessPal up on the FAQ for lifting for KOOP. So look for that this week. And I'm also getting up, we should have by the end of the week here, our fields and drills for all of our throwing stuff. So excited about that as well, to start to action that for you guys. When we send out reports, you guys will have links to KOOP, understanding how to implement fields and drills. Reeves did a great job, by the way, throwing in those videos. I know he was a superstar.
Exercise videos too. So he's going to be jacked.
He's like the model.
A great baseball player. He was a great baseball player before he got to us. He'll be an even better baseball player.
So shout out Reeves for being a mannequin for us and going through all of our exercises. He actually was pretty late last night on that one too, so that was good. But we worked pretty late last night getting those done. So that should be up on KOOP. So live from the KOOP. We have, like I said, some FAQs up this week on Pulse and also on ProPlay. So if you are remote, if you're in facility, you have questions on how that stuff works, you need to get some video or you need to use Pulse more effectively, you're trying to get started on those things, great resource to hop in. And we'll have more of that stuff coming up with our technologies as the KP app drops. Like, yeah, okay, that's coming soon. Anyways, so we'll have that stuff up as well on the KOOP for the FAQs moving forward. So moving forward tonight on the last one here, we have AMA. So you guys obviously tuning in tonight, are live guys watching, drop some questions in the chat here, and we're going to answer them for you. I'm going to start off tonight. I'm going to pull up. We had a question this week on elbow flexion through support. So you guys having issues. I want to mention that you guys having issues with ProPlay or your weekly reports or any issues you're having in general in your training. Make sure that you guys reach out to support@kineticprobaseball.com. It's going to ping all of us, me, Garrett, Reeves, Matt. You're going to get insights from the whole team if you have questions. So trying to get you guys there. There'll be some new stuff around support as well to get you guys just better customer service from our end and helping you guys with some solutions. I say customer service, but it's really just solutions. So, but on the support email this week, I had a good question about elbow flexion. And it was really the gist of it is what is elbow flexion? Like what role does it play in the throwing motion? So, Garrett, I'll start off on this one. I'll talk a little bit on it, and then I'm going to kick over the next question to you, which is about weight and gaining weight, one of our common issues with our high school guys, and let you talk a little bit through that. So I'll start off. I'll try to be quick on elbow flexion, answer it, and then pass it over to you. So elbow flexion, to the question this week, first off, what is elbow flexion? It's a point at which we measure. So on the body, so we have elbow extension, and then we have elbow flexion. So think about flexing the bicep. We have extension of the elbow. So when we go through our throwing motion, our arm works through extension and flexion. Basically at the elbow, it extends and flexes. And we're able to track that from foot plant all the way to ball release. The arm moves through different ranges of motion of elbow extension and flexion. So think about like as you come in, the arm flexes a little bit. As I go to MER, the arm goes back and it typically will flex a little bit more. And then it'll start to come out to extension as we release. So we know things like if my arm goes to extension too quickly, coming into ball release or moving out of MER, it's going to put more stress on the arm. We know things like research is correlated to elbow flexion angle at foot plant to more stress on the arm. So a ton of different pieces there. Elbow extension has been correlated to velocity of elbow extension has been correlated to ball velocity. So a ton of different moving pieces there that are all relevant to the actual throw itself. It's really important for us to just understand that it's not about necessarily where it's at foot plant. A lot of coaches will teach us. So look at the white paper. They'll say, 82 to 105 degrees. It needs to be within this range somewhere in here. And they teach the importance of where it's at foot plant. Foot plant's nice. It's important for us to understand where it's at foot plant because that's kind of the last place where we can really control the positioning of the arm or the body. And then after that, it's kind of all passive. It follows that chain of energy, things like the trunk influencing that rotation, pulling the arm into position. But it's really important for us to understand that it's not necessarily about foot plant. We're setting up positioning of the arm to then move into max external rotation and the ball release stress. The peak stress is actually measured on the arm just before max external rotation. So if we're looking at that, we have to realize that, being in this position, if I'm long, if I'm short, it doesn't really matter. It's not necessarily about that. It's about how I rotate into max external rotation and then how I move into ball release from there. So in context, a lot of guys think shorter is better with the arm path. It's not. There are individual reasons in terms of physicality, in terms of how we would assess guys from everything is from the trunk to the lower body to kind of the way that the arm even works that would limit somebody's ability to get into certain elbow flexion positions at certain times of the throw. So, I don't want to leave it completely open-ended. It is a good thing to think about trying to be in a good position with the elbow and elbow flexion, but is it really that relevant in terms of arm health and in terms of ball velocity? Not really. It is and it isn't. It's more about if you really want to influence it, it's trying to get through constrained drills, having a purpose, some intent. We've used that word already tonight. Some intent behind what we're trying to accomplish. So working from most constrained things like on the knees throws and working the arm through the proper path to then going to pivot picks and blending up into a throw. We don't want to completely change the way the arm works. We want to kind of manipulate it a little bit to maybe give us a better position or a better understanding of where the arm should be. So that's elbow flexion in a nutshell. I think, is it relevant? Yes. Is it something we should obsess over? No. Can we influence it? Yes. Constrained drills with plyos and field drills, kind of best way to go through it. So hopefully that answers that question. Next question we have, Garrett, let me read this to you. Next one we have tonight is going through some weight. And this was also submitted to support this week. So the question comes down to basically this athlete saying, I'm 175 pounds and I'm trying to gain weight, but nothing seems to kind of be working. They're saying they're tracking their progression, but they're having some issues, getting to gaining what they want to get to. They're trying to get to 200 pounds. So, talk to me a little bit about that and maybe some troubleshooting for high school athletes and reasons why it's a little bit difficult for guys 16 to 18 to gain weight as to maybe opposed to somebody who's 25, trying to put some weight on.
So the biggest thing when we look at like a high schooler is the schedule that they have on a day-to-day basis. They're gonna have, you guys are in school from 8 to 3. That's normal high school. I don't know. I'm old enough where I don't remember. So, and knowing that you guys are in class all day and then you only have like a half-hour lunch period at like noon, that really means you can eat from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then 4 hours until noon to 12:30, and then another 3 hours until right after school, right before training session. It's really the only times that you can have real meals. So like because of the schedule constraints, the 3 tips that I would have would be drink your calories. So like if you're allowed to have water bottles and drinks in class, you can definitely be able to drink majority of your calories in school, where now instead of 8 to noon where you weren't getting any calories in, if you have 2 Gatorades, that's 400 calories that you just added. Same thing from noon to 3, you just added 800 calories to your whole day without really ever eating more food, but you're still getting those calories in that will ultimately lead to gaining weight. Second tip is going to be eating calorie dense foods. A good example is always like chicken and ground beef. Both, if you eat the same amount, if you eat 12 ounces of chicken and 12 ounces of ground beef, you're going to get the same amount of protein intake, which is super important. But the ground beef is going to have more fat content, which is going to add more calories to that same amount of 12 ounces. So the density of the ground beef is higher. So you don't have to eat as much chicken to have the same amount of calories as ground beef. So you can eat a little bit less. It just depends on what foods you eat, being more calorie dense. And then the third tip is eat when you can. So like if somebody offers you some food at school, just take it. Like it's pretty simple. Like eat when you can, especially when you get home. Like if you have siblings or like there's extra food, don't leave leftovers. Eat as much as you can, and just trying to get as many calories in as well. Then also tip 4, I guess. I think I have 2 more. I said 3, but I'm thinking of them on the spot.
Crushing it.
So tip 4 is going to be do less. So the reason you're eating is to gain weight, is to perform better at your sport. So being able to do less than what you would do. So let's say you're on an off day. An off day should be a very light day anyways. But if you're going out and riding your bike with friends or going on super long walks or jogs and stuff like that, for one, it's going to induce stress. And we're trying to have that off day to help recover, to then train harder the next day. That's extra calories that you have to eat. So if you're thinking you're not eating enough because you're not gaining weight, do less, eat more, and that's probably going to have a really good impact on the weight. The fifth is going to be just making sure that the protein is going to be high as well, because if we're trying to gain weight, we're trying to gain the right amount of weight. And if we're only eating fats and carbs, it's really just going to be able to put on fat, and we don't want to do that. So having a high protein intake as well. For one, higher protein intake is going to increase overall calories, but it's also going to increase overall muscle mass that we can actually put on our bodies. And that's the type of weight that we're actually trying to do. So all those 5, I think, would probably be good tips to be able to gain weight. And then obviously tracking as well to see where that weight goes with the amount of calories. So we can always adjust that if needed be. And that's just emailing support and talking to me and getting a hold and working through that.
That's perfect. I mean, I think it's like we talked about, it's getting on MyFitnessPal, tracking it, being consistent with that. If there's issues with that, obviously support at kineticprobaseball.com is the place to go to ask questions and get in touch with you. And then, obviously your FAQs up soon on KOOP will be a great place for those guys to troubleshoot some of those issues as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to, like you said, I love, guys at that age are a little more active, like just, playing around, go riding bikes and doing whatever. And just the overall body is just moving and doing a lot more. Our as we get a little older, it's obvious that, kind of slow down a little bit, but when you guys are young, it's you got to overcome that. And there's a hurdle there, and it's gonna be a little uncomfortable. I remember we used to go when I was younger, we used to go have burrito eating contests at Chipotle. I'd get like 2.5 burritos in, like, and I mean, it was just a ton of food, like crazy amount of money, but it wasn't my money, my parents' money at the time. Right. So, but we would go and have burrito eating contests and just see who could eat the most burritos. And I was eating with a guy who was like 6'7", 245. And I was 175 pounds. So it's just, that's the kind of stuff that you have to be creative sometimes and challenge yourself and make it a game. And it would take us 3 hours to eat. Like we'd sit there and just eat. But it was like-minded individuals pushing themselves. He was a pitcher, I was a pitcher. Like we just kind of did it as a joke, like, and to make me eat. So, that's ultimately how I ended up gaining weight. So challenge yourselves. Like, I think that's a huge thing. You're absolutely right. Like, those 5 tips are huge. Like if you can just, action some of those things and find a way to go above and beyond. And I know as people are like, oh, I'm trying so hard and I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'm like, well, just eat more. Like you gotta push harder. Yeah,
that you're not doing.
Yeah,
that is the reason you're not working.
It will happen, and you have to push harder. Like you have to push harder through it. Again, come back to this word intent. Can be our kind of word tonight. Intent, right? We have to have intent. Like even at the dinner table. Like I'm going to eat all of the food on this plate. I'm not going to stop eating until I'm not going to move. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to eat.
And then intent behind recovery days being recovery days and doing less and eating the same amount.
Exactly.
And being able to have basically having as much intent as possible with every aspect of your life is going to be the big thing, because a lot of people can have high intent for 2 hours, an hour of lifting, an hour of throwing, but it's those 22 hours outside of that, the sleep, the recovery, the ability to not do things. I think that's another big point is like the ability to not do something is just as important, maybe more important than the ability to do something. And you have to be able to make decisions and the right ones to ultimately try. Every decision you should make is always based on, does this get me better at pitching? If yes, do that thing. If no, don't do that thing.
I love it. So we're moving more from nutrition to philosophy here, but no, one story on this that I really like that I'll share. I think it's relevant here. Listened to a really good podcast this past week with Jerry Seinfeld, and it was funny. So I sent it to all the guys, but really cool. It talks about writing, and it talks about his process of understanding writing. And so he says, I would go into a coffee shop and I would sit down. I'd go coffee, pad of paper, notes, like 20 notes, higher or lower, whatever, of things that he was working on, 20 different things. And he has a small stack of papers, small binder, a little book thing that has all of his like random stuff that he thinks is funny that might insert into these big notes or something that he's writing. And he says, I sit down and I only focus. I tell myself I'm going to spend an hour here or 2 hours here, whatever he says. I'm going to spend this time writing. And he says, I am going to dedicate this time, his intent, I'm going to dedicate this time to writing. I'm going to write. I may not write anything. He said, you don't have to write anything, but you can't do anything else. And so he said, that's his focus. He sits down, puts everything in place, puts the phone away, gets away from the social media, from the TikTok, from all the other stuff, whatever's going on in his life. I'm sure the man's got a lot going on in his life. Whatever's going on, gets away from it, sits down, and says, I may not have to write, I may not have any inspiration, may not be able to, but I am not going to do anything else but sit here and focus on writing. And so when we talk about nutrition, or we talk about drill work and throwing, right? How often do we have that kind of intent where I sit down, I look at something and go, I may not get it right today. I may not even do it. I'm not going to stop thinking about it. I'm going to find a way to do it today. And so it's like, at the dinner table, I'm not moving until I eat all this food on this plate. It might take me 5 hours. But I'm not moving, but I'm going to eat it and I'm going to do it. And so if you have that kind of mentality, on anything, whether it be throwing, whether it be nutrition, whatever, you take that mentality in, you designate that time, you put intent behind it and say, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to find a way to do it. Then you're going to find a way to have success in it. And so I agree with you. I think to this message, not to call this person out, but it's to say that you tried everything. Like you haven't. There's more. There's definitely more. Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely more. So to close it out tonight, I think that's it for AMA. Close it out tonight. Guys, as always, we've got reports coming out this week for our remote guys. Make sure you submit your pro play videos. Make sure you sync all of your pulse data. A lot of you guys have tournaments and other stuff going on right now through this time frame. I really want you guys to focus in and be attentive to making sure that you guys are consistent with your entries, your MyFitnessPal, your pulse sensor, your pro play video so we can analyze it, get you back a good schedule, help you with that, and make sure that we're staying on track in terms of our development. Also, those that are in-house, we have some cool stuff coming out. Our KP app is going to be out soon, going to go live here in the next couple of weeks. We've been saying that for a long time. I know you guys probably don't believe me at this point, but it's actually going live the next couple of weeks. So look for that. We've got a TrackMan coming in a week, I think. We got the
change-ups every day.
Yeah, Garrett's going to be throwing
the best change-up in the facility.
If you guys roll in about 9 a.m., Garrett will be in there on his own throwing change-ups to the TrackMan. So TrackMan coming in for the off season. Super excited about that one. But guys, if you have questions on anything in terms of training, you guys want to come in for a session, those of you that are remote, those of you that are in a facility, you have questions about your schedule moving forward, please contact us, support@kineticprobaseball.com. Make sure that you guys hop on and let us know what is going on. Communicate with us so we can get back to you and help you out with things. But that's it for tonight. Any closing remarks, Garrett?
No.
Okay, great. That's it. All right, guys. We'll see you next week for episode 4, right?
Episode 4.
Episode 4 of Communities. We'll see you guys next week. Later.